which causes the stomach to secrete stomach acid, and you can get those at the health food store. So you should take a betaine pill with every meal, certainly any meal that has protein in it, for several months until your system gets where it can do it on its own, and has it, because the main reason you can't make stomach acid is you don't have iodine. All right? You're beginning to see how important iodine is? People think, oh, iodine. I have a real problem in my practice. I put people on, everybody comes in, I put them on iodine, they'll take it for one bottle and then they quit. Well, that's not going to do it, is it? Because you have to have iodine forever. So once they get through with that bottle and they quit taking it, now they quit making stomach acid and they're right back into this old system again. And so even if they avoid the foods that they're allergic to, they're going to get allergic to the new foods because they're still not making stomach acid. So they're going to get allergic to those because they can't digest them either. Any questions about how the stomach works with this? Okay. Now I need to talk to you about dental problems. When a person comes in and their total body voltage is low, that's almost always what? Hypothyroidism or stomach acid. If they come in and their total body voltage is normal, but they have one or two circuits that are out, they've got one or two illnesses, they got colitis, they got heart disease, their brain doesn't work, they got one something or other, that's almost always a dental problem. Okay? And here's how that works. First of all, let me just show you a little bit of this movie. I didn't hook up the, we won't worry about the sound, I can just show you what we're showing in this movie is that the
increases with any kind of stimulation.
I don't know if these lights can come down any or not. Aaron, will you look and see if maybe we can shut them down? But basically this is a mercury filling in a tooth, and it has a phosphorescent screen around it, behind it, and what you can see is all this mercury vapors coming off of it. See it? And so this happens when you have a mercury filling. That happens every time you raise the temperature in your mouth, like drinking a cup of coffee. It happens every time you brush it. So whenever you brush your teeth in the morning, you've got all this mercury coming off of it. And so, see here here you can see the mercury coming, right? So, and then of course one of the worst things is to have somebody drill on your teeth, or when you go to the dentist's office and they begin to clean your teeth and they're polishing in there, you have huge amounts of, well, look at that, all that mercury coming right off your fillings. So one of the problems with teeth is that if you have mercury fillings, you're getting poisoned with the mercury. But there's another problem, and that is that here you see a mercury filling, and dentists traditionally remove at least a third, and then you can see in this tooth all over a half of the tooth with what are called undercuts, just so that mercury filling won't fall out. So they've removed a large portion of your tooth to put a filling in. Well, eventually the tooth fractures, and usually it goes down the side, and then the dentist will come along and put a crown right on top. So now you have mercury leaking into an open wound, and yet the dentist can never see it because this x-ray won't go through the crown. So he x-rays it and said, all things look beautiful. Okay? So you've got all of this mercury going into your system underneath there. But the important thing to know is that every tooth is wired into an acupuncture circuit. So whatever happens to that tooth happens to the organs that are on that same circuit. So for example, there are some people who have published that all breast cancers are associated with an infection in one of these teeth. You see this where it says right breast? So it's this upper right molar, or the one of these two molars, or this premolar. On the other side, it's over here. It also, the breast, is these bottom teeth. I've seen one breast cancer in which I couldn't find a dental connection to it. Okay? So almost all women with breast cancer will have infection in these teeth. Okay? So somebody was talking to me earlier about a family member that has pancreatitis. Well, if you've got pancreatitis and you've got normal total body voltage, guess what's probably causing the pancreatitis? See where it says pancreas? See where it says pancreas? She got an infection in one of those teeth. That's why her pancreas is flared up. And the reason is that the kind of bug that's able to have lunch on a tooth, of all things, puts out a really severe toxin called gliotoxin or thioether. If it's a bacteria, it's a thioether. If it's a fungus in there, it's called a gliotoxin. So what you see is, well, let's go back to this. This is the problem. You see this crown looks pretty good, and the dentist will say, oh, that's a beautiful crown. You say, well, yeah, but it kind of aches every once in a while. Oh, nothing wrong with that tooth. The x-rays look fine until you take it off. Surprise, what's under there, right? Now, remember, when you go to the dentist and you tell them you want all of the mercury taken out of your mouth, be sure that they give you an air supply, because you saw those fumes coming off, particularly if they're drilling on them. So if the dentist doesn't protect you by giving you an air supply, then as those fumes come out of your own mouth, they'll go into your nose and into your brain, and you'll come out of there feeling terrible, and it's a hard problem getting mercury out of your brain. So don't do that. Don't allow a dentist to be grinding on a silver filling without giving you an air supply. And I like to even put those little cotton balls in there, so I'm sure I'm not going to have any of that mercury go up my nose and into my brain. And you want them to use what's called a rubber dam. A rubber dam is just a sheet of plastic that they poke a tooth through so that any pieces that fall down are captured by this and you don't swallow them. So before you have any dental work, call your dentist's office and say, when you work on my teeth, will you give me an air supply and use a rubber dam? And if they say, oh, that's not important, go find another dentist. Okay? Now, a root canal is one of the worst things of all, because a root canal is a dead tooth. The way you do a root canal is you drill a hole in the top here, you put this auger down, and you rip the artery and nerve out and kill the tooth. The dentists are the only physicians who purposely leave dead tissue in the body, because everybody knows that dead tissue gets infected. So if your big toe dies and I don't amputate it, you're going to die from gangrene, aren't you? If your appendix dies and you don't amputate it, you're going to die from peritonitis. If your tooth dies and you don't amputate it, it just takes longer to do you in, but it will. Here's a study that actually comes from the root canal doctor's own journal, the Journal of Endodontics. And this was a study where they had people who are going to have wisdom teeth pulled. And so they did a root canal on one side and then waited 3 months and then pulled both teeth. Now, molars contain up to 3 miles of these little tubules. You see the little tubules in here? Well, this tooth they didn't do anything to. 1% of the tubules were infected. This one that had a root canal 3 months earlier, 39% of the tubules are infected in just 3 months. Okay? Now, this study was done at the University of Kentucky, and it shows that one root canal tooth shuts down 63% of your immune system. Okay? So one of the worst things you can do is to go around with an abscess in your mouth called a root canal, because you don't feel it because the nerve's not there anymore, right? But it's sitting there putting out these thioethers, shutting down your immune system. So that's why, it does the general immune system, but it'll also take down the voltage in whatever circuit it's in. And that's why oftentimes like I had a woman come in to see me from Carolina, and she had such severe pain in her upper back that she was on OxyContin. She'd been all over the place, had neurologists and MRI scan. They couldn't figure out what was wrong with her, but she had all this pain, so she came in the OxyContin. And she said, you've got to do something for me. She said, I can't stand the pain without it, and I can't function with it. So I looked at where she was hurting, and it was where the perineural system goes out to the lung. So I looked in her mouth, and this tooth right here was discolored and had a huge mercury filling in it. And when I put a voltmeter on it, it was leaking more than 200 millivolts. Well, you shouldn't be leaking more than 30 millivolts out of a tooth. And so I told her that her back pain was coming from that tooth. Well, she thought my cheese had slipped off the cracker and refused to go to the dentist. Well, it took me 3 days to finally convince her to go, and eventually when she went to the dentist, as soon as he put the block in to numb that tooth, the back pain was gone. He took the filling out, cleaned out the infection, put a different, a new filling back in that wasn't mercury.